Look around your room, your phone, your clothes, your shoes by the door. Even the coffee you drank this morning, you didn't pick them with pure freedom. You picked them because something inside you whispered that if you don't have the right symbols, you're incomplete. And everyone will notice. That's the lie. And it's not a small lie. It's the kind of lie that turns your life into a shopping itinerary, your attention into a pipeline, and your identity into an inventory list. This video is about the consumer matrix, the system that doesn't just sell you things, but engineers your hunger, then sells you the cure for the hunger it created. Before you roll your eyes, answer a more honest question. When you buy something expensive, do you feel satisfaction, or do you feel a brief rush of safety from judgment? When you see a new model drop, do you feel curiosity, or do you feel panic that you're already falling behind? When you scroll social media and see other people living a life that looks effortless, do you feel inspiration, or do you feel that tight emotional contraction in your chest that says you don't measure up? If you've ever felt that contraction, you're already inside the machine. You didn't get recruited with a gun. You got recruited with cues, with colors, with scarcity, with perfect lighting, with the promise of belonging. And once you understand the mechanism, you stop blaming yourself. You start naming what's been controlling you. The uncomfortable truth is this. Modern capitalism doesn't mainly depend on people wanting things. It depends on people feeling insufficient. It manufactures dissatisfaction like it's a natural resource. Your needs are real, yes, food, shelter, clothing, safety, but those are not the battlefield anymore. The battlefield is your self-worth, your status anxiety, your fear of being invisible. The machine attacks the parts of you that want love, meaning, and recognition, then redirects those needs into consumption. And the most brutal part is that it works even when you think you're being rational. You tell yourself you bought something because it's efficient, durable, high quality, worth it. You tell yourself you deserve nice things. You tell yourself you're just keeping up. But deep down, the purchase is often a psychological transaction. You trade money for relief from the feeling that you're not enough. The human mind hates uncertainty. It prefers a simple story. So the consumer matrix gives you a story. It says, your value is portable. It says, if you wear the right thing, you'll be the right person. It says, if you upgrade, you'll feel upgraded. It says, if you buy now, you won't miss out. And then it takes advantage of a darker truth. You want permission to feel worthy. You want a shortcut to identity. Historically, buying had a different logic. People bought shoes because old ones were torn. People bought a car because the horse was too slow. That was function. It was about solving a problem. But then something happened that changed everything. Public relations and psychological manipulation became advanced enough to link objects to emotion, emotion to status, and status to survival instincts. A marketing genius figured out that you don't need to convince people with facts. You only need to connect a product to something sacred in the human psyche. The hidden desires, the private fears, the hunger for belonging, the dream of becoming special. If you can make the product feel like the key to all that, you stop selling and start recruiting. That's why people don't just use certain brands. They worship them quietly. They defend them emotionally. They defend them like they're protecting an extension of themselves. When someone sees a brand they're loyal to, their brain can light up in areas that overlap with belief and identity. That's not metaphor. That's what happens when a logo becomes a psychological anchor. To the outside world, it looks irrational. To the person inside, it feels like meaning. It feels like certainty. It feels like membership. When the world feels chaotic and you feel lost, a brand offers a script. You don't have to figure out who you are. The label tells you who you are supposed to be. And the matrix takes that and turns it into a system with no finish line. It doesn't offer you a final purchase that solves everything. It offers you a moving target. It offers almost enough, almost current, almost perfect, almost you. This is how the consumer matrix flips the pyramid of needs. Basic needs get treated as commodities, but identity gets treated as a battlefield. You're not being sold a watch. You're being sold a position in a social ranking. You're not being sold makeup. You're being sold the fantasy of immortality, of staying desirable, of being chosen forever. So what you're consuming isn't really the product. It's the symbol. And because symbols are infinite and comparisons never end, you never feel complete. A symbol doesn't satisfy hunger. It just changes the flavor of hunger. Now here's the second uncomfortable truth. Brands don't just rely on your desires. They engineer your attention through your nervous system. People love to pretend marketing is a gentle persuasion. It isn't. It's a choreography designed to hijack your reflexes. Step into a mall. Notice how your senses get controlled like instruments. Scents are dispersed in specific patterns to trigger memory and comfort. Music is tuned to a tempo that quietly nudges your pace. Lighting is calibrated to exaggerate shape, texture, and desirability. Even the placement of products is designed to make you feel you discovered them naturally, when you didn't. And once you leave the store, the machine follows you. Notifications, recommendations, personalized feeds. The algorithm studies your behavior and predicts what will trigger desire before you fully admit you're triggered. It doesn't need to scare you, it only needs to keep you emotionally available. What happens then is subtle. You stop noticing the manipulations. You start believing your impulses are your own. Your brain begins to treat the advertisement like a thought you produced. The result is that you act first, justify later. You buy, then you craft a believable reason afterward. And because the matrix is built for repeat behavior, it also uses time as a weapon. That's where planned obsolescence comes in, not only technically, but psychologically. The obvious version is when the device breaks or slows down as soon as the warranty ends. You've seen it. You're not paranoid. Sometimes it's engineered. Components are chosen so the repair is impractical. Software updates are pushed so the old model becomes sluggish, incompatible, or unsupported. The physical object becomes a disposable ritual. But the deeper version is psychological obsolescence. It's the feeling that your life is outdated. The feeling that your style is embarrassing. The feeling that your version of yourself is behind the curve. It's not just that the product wears out. It's that your identity is made to feel worn out. Fashion is the clearest example. Years used to matter. Seasons used to be meaningful. Now the cycle is constant. New drops every week, minor changes used as excuses, color tweaks, camera upgrades, micro differences that mean everything emotionally and almost nothing physically. They create fake urgency. They create the illusion that if you don't buy today, your desire will expire. Scarcity doesn't just make you buy, it makes you feel guilty for hesitating. It turns a purchase into a moral decision. It frames your wallet as a character trait. And this is where the machine becomes cruel in a very specific way. It ties your emotional safety to your purchasing speed. You chase a feeling. You chase the sensation of being caught up. You buy the next thing to escape the discomfort of falling behind. Then the discomfort returns faster than your excitement lasts. That's the loop. It has a scientific costume, but the emotional mechanism is ancient. You reach an internal goal. You feel dopamine. You feel excitement, power, relief. Then your brain adapts. That new normal becomes normal again. The feeling fades. Now you need more stimulus to create the same intensity. So the matrix never has to say, consume again. You already know how to ask for it. You've trained your own nervous system. You become your own dealer, feeding yourself just enough pleasure to keep you functional, and just enough dissatisfaction to keep you buying. This is the reason so many people look successful on the outside and feel dead on the inside. They have stuff, but they don't feel stable. They have upgrades, but they don't feel whole. Their life has become a treadmill. Work to earn, spend to feel, panic to keep up, repeat. Meanwhile, the machine sells you a fantasy of control. You think you chose. You think you're unique. But the consumer matrix depends on standardization. It turns many minds into one behavior pattern. It also depends on social comparison. That's the third uncomfortable truth, and it's the one nobody wants to admit because it makes you feel childish. But it's not childish. It's human. The brain naturally compares. The brain naturally wants to rank itself for survival. The problem is that brands learn to weaponize comparison. They don't just show you products. They show you lifestyles. They show you luxury vacations. They show you the version of you that you could be if you bought what they bought. And the algorithm amplifies it because it knows envy keeps you scrolling. Envy is not just a feeling, it's a fuel. It creates urgency. It creates mental bargaining. It makes you say, I'm behind. I need to catch up. And you start treating consumption like therapy. People don't just buy to enjoy, they buy to numb. They buy to escape self-doubt for a few hours. They buy to quiet the inner voice that says, you're not special, you're not enough, you're not chosen. But the numbness has side effects. Debt, stress, financial anxiety, more shame. And then the shame creates a need for more numbness. It becomes a cycle where your emotions get worse while your cart gets fuller. You're not just spending money, you're spending your future. Now let's talk about the part of the matrix that feels the most personal: identity. The machine doesn't only want your money, it wants your self-concept. When you buy an item, you're not only purchasing fabric or metal, you're purchasing a story about who you are. You're purchasing a claim: I belong. I have taste. I'm the kind of person who can afford this. I'm safe among people like me. And because identity is fragile, that claim feels comforting. That's why the Matrix is so powerful. It offers you belonging without requiring vulnerability. You don't have to earn respect through character. You can borrow respect through brand. That's why you'll see people spend on appearances while neglecting their own inner life. They treat the outside as a substitute for self-esteem. They treat purchases like social insurance. They treat their feed like proof that they exist. But here is the trap hidden inside the trap. A brand identity is outsourced. It's not built from your values, it's built from other people's approval. And approval is unstable. It changes with trends. It changes with who's watching. It changes with algorithms and fashions and new cool items. So your identity becomes dependent on an external system that you cannot fully control. You're not living a life. You're managing impressions. You're not becoming yourself. You're performing a version of yourself that can be judged at any moment. And if you feel anger reading this, good. That anger is your mind trying to protect you. It's the moment you realize the uncomfortable possibility. Maybe your choices aren't as free as you want to believe. Maybe you've been reacting to pressure disguised as desire. Now, there's a fourth truth, and it's the darkest one. The consumer matrix isn't just psychological, it's structural. It requires the world to keep running in a way that guarantees your dissatisfaction. Consider what happens when you normalize disposability. Products don't become yesterday's trend by magic. They become waste. They become pollution. They become extraction. They become workers who carry the hidden cost. But the matrix hides the origin. It hides the sweat inside the supply chain. It hides the damage to forests. It hides the toxic waste. It hides the quiet suffering behind the shiny object. You see a bottle under LED lights. You see a garment folded in a store. You see a designer campaign. You do not see the factory workers. You do not see the children sometimes involved in unethical labor. You do not see the burned land. And because you don't see it, you can keep consuming without your conscience interfering. Marketing greenwashing offers a clean conscience on credit. It says, you can be good while you keep buying. It creates a moral anesthetic. So the machine isn't only feeding your hunger, it's feeding your blindness. Now you might ask, is this just corporate evil? Are all brands villains? No. Don't be naive. There are good companies and responsible products. The point is not to demonize every product. The point is to expose the mechanism that turns needs into obsession. The mechanism is internal. Your mind seeks certainty. Your mind seeks belonging. Your mind seeks relief from anxiety. The matrix offers a rapid route. You can skip the slow work of growth, healing, discipline, and identity building. You can buy a feeling. That's why it works. It's convenient. It's immediate. It doesn't require you to face your inner emptiness. It covers it with material brightness, and emptiness is the real enemy, even if you don't call it that. The machine thrives because you don't know how to sit with yourself. You don't know how to tolerate the gap between who you are and who you want to become. You don't know what to do with silence. So you fill silence with scrolling. You fill silence with shopping. You fill silence with new purchases that are supposed to fix the feeling that your life is missing something. But the missing thing isn't a bag, or shoes, or a phone. The missing thing is self-trust. The missing thing is meaning. The missing thing is the ability to feel worthy without permission from strangers.